Yeah, mine is,
Yeah.
but yours isn't.
It was me. I didn't have that.
You didn't have
Yours is.
So
What
we're
about yours?
good to go?
So you have to redo the first one?
Yours is dead.
You just
Cal's
can't
is
stop
dead.
it.
What about yours?
Mine's dead. No,
Yours is there. Hopefully nobody out there has their volume all the way up. Switch to tabs. You can always move.
All good. Got the thumbs up.
Okay. So,
Speak up.
do we have a mover, or we've got a recommendation from staff? We've got some options. Anyone?
I'll move I think the recommendation is that we put this variance forward, correct?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes, I'll move that.
Okay, so the recommendation is that the application for a development variance permit to vary the requirements of zoning bylaw 3199, 2013 for the purpose of building an attached garage with a second-story art studio and elevator be approved for Lot 1, District Lot 58A, Kootenai District Plan, NEP 66174, 411 3rd Street, as per attached plans as follows. Zoning bylaw number 3199, 2013, section 4.1.7 of Schedule A, to reduce the rear lot line setback from 4.5 meters to 1.5 meters as per the attached plans. We have a second. Okay, so that was Councillor Renwick and Councillor Charwood. And any comments? Councillor?
Huh?
Do you need the planners to give any?
Yeah, I do. I need,
Okay.
through the chair to staff, as I look at my concern is looking at this studio, and my question that I wrote here when I reviewed this, is that the studio, is that now a third, is the potential that that's now a third living area such that it could be a rental or a short-term rental? Like, is it large? I was reading that it's quite a large, and then I couldn't remember what our numbers were. I think it's 256 square feet. I'm just wondering, we're going to use it as an art studio. It's got elevator access now. Very nice. Is this going to be now a third living residence in a house that's already got a house that's a duplex, and now we've got 3 potential living units that can be rented? Now I know that we can have 3 because we changed our bylaws. Is that what this is going to be? Is this going to be another vacation rental or short-term rental? Would it meet the criteria?
Oh, through the chair, I haven't looked at it under that lens as a short-term rental. My understanding, this is a couple. They're both seniors, and they just want a little bit extra space. They own this house, and they want to move back into it. And the art studio is, I guess it's not large enough for what they need, and he's an artist. So that was the intention. And you are correct, I guess, if it met all the requirements, one day someone potentially could come in and convert it into a third unit. But for the time being, it's just extra space. And they've also, done some design modifications to reduce the neighbor impact on that second story, which is they've increased the side setback quite a bit. And they have small windows if it were to be converted at a later date.
Natalie, wouldn't parking come into play at that stage?
It would come into play at that stage, exactly. So they'd have to add another parking space on there, be pretty tight. That's also on the bike route. So it might be kind of tricky for them to actually get another unit in there. That's a good point.
I'm sorry, to staff, I'm just looking at the, to me, I'm seeing 2 parking spots, for sure. And then there's a garage. Am I reading this drawing wrong? Somebody can help me out there. At grade parking stall. And then this is built on top of what looks to me, when I look at the picture, a garage. So it looks to me like there's potentially for spots there for 4 cars.
Yes, they can fit 4 cars, which is the requirement for a duplex.
Okay.
Yeah. And 2 of them are gonna be in the garage to be able to make the second story unit accessible so that they can drive in there, go in their elevator and up to the second story.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No, those are my questions.
Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Okay. All right, can somebody,
I was carried.
No, it wasn't.
it was carried.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, because
Oh,
he
I-
voted in favor.
Yeah, no, it was passed. Yep.
One,
you can
two,
come back
3
and-
votes in favor.
Wait,
I think it
did you oppose?
Yeah.
I
You
didn't see
did.
anybody.
These two didn't put their hands up.
I asked any opposed, and nobody put their
No,
hand
but it
up.
passed. It passed.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it passed.
Yeah, if you don't put your hand up, then you're.
It's assumed.
It's considered you're voting in affirmative and you'll put your hand up.
Okay.
Just testing you, Chair. Just a
On his
test.
toes.
Sorry, gang, my battery. Oh, there we go. Yeah, I got it. So to lose power here. All right. And we wait. It's not coming up. Okay, so the next one is another development variance permit for 516 Silica Street. Development Services has received a development variance permit application for 516 Silica Street to reduce the minimum side lot line required by the zoning bylaw from 1 meter to 0 meters for the purpose of increasing the height of an existing laneway house to correct an under-height ceiling. Council is being requested to approve the variance, and I think there's a recommendation for staff to approve. Yep, there's a recommendation. Have anyone like to take an action on that? Counselor, okay, Counselor Renwick's moving the recommendation. Second, do we have a second?
Yeah,
All right, Counselor Charlwood is seconding. Do we have any comments or questions from the mover or the second? First, no? Yes? Okay,
Yeah,
Counselor Charlwood and then Counselor Morrison.
I guess just coming in late, there's sort of a bigger question maybe around this was illegally done, didn't get the appropriate, how do we feel about that? My impression from the report is they're getting themselves up to, they've been participating well, we're gonna kind of forgive that, ignore, I mean, I've been here a very short period of time, but there have been other things that have come to us where, hey, you kind of set that up without our permission in advance, and so we're not here to approve it. So I'm just curious if that's still a good assessment. The owner's been cooperative, really working to make this better. Would we have approved it? It sounds like we would have approved it had they put this forward, likely anyway,
Yeah.
in the end.
Yeah,
Is that true?
yeah, exactly. It's sort of an existing condition. It's too bad that they didn't come and get all the proper permits. Potentially some things could have been a little bit different with this scenario, but it is what it is now a little bit, and they're working with us. They're getting all the required documentation. They're working with the building inspector. And I think the neighbor impact is quite minimal here because of the large structure next to it. And I have spoken to some of the neighbors and they seem okay with it. So I think it's reasonable, and they're moving forward in the right direction. And so I felt comfortable recommending approval.
Okay, Counselor Morrison.
Well, I think the previous counselor stole all my
Oh,
questions. I
thunder.
mean, I'm just looking at the fact that there was like a lot of deficiencies in this building. You know, spiral staircases. You know, the uncertainty with the roof and the collars for tying in the roof line, which looks like they were fixing, and that's why it's going up business. And again, it's just that, like, do we have all of these deficiencies now addressed satisfactorily? Because the fact that this now is on the, like, you know, the height. I mean, I don't even have a problem with the height, but if there's still internal deficiencies in this building and it's not constructed properly, we've now got it on a 0 side setback, which makes it just that much closer to the house next door in case it ever burns down. So, I mean, there was a lot of deficiencies in this house. And that's sort of my concern going forward. I can see from the renderings and stuff that, you know, the peak of this is going to be no higher than the peak of the garage next door. But just because you have a nice roof and you can stand up, what about all the other internal deficiencies that can lead to other issues besides the fact that you just need to be a short person like me to live in it?
Yeah, they have a approved building permit, so they're working on some of the other outstanding issues. The building inspector seems satisfied that they are moving forward, and they are under direction of an engineer. And so this was kind of the last piece that they needed to sort out to comply with the building code. So I feel confident that they are moving in the right direction. However, if for some reason they stall the project or they don't follow through, we always have the notice on title that protects the city against liability and also protects future purchasers to know, like, we'll inform them that this is going on there. But yeah, we have to give a little bit too.
So a follow-up question then, through the chair to staff, in terms of the fact that there is a notice on title on these things, and the whole idea is that we put those on with the hopes that people rectify the deficiencies in their building.
Yeah.
Is, if everything comes up to code and everything is done, once this approval is made, does this come back to us again? Does it come back to council, or is the notice on title just removed and we're not made aware? Like, how does that last step, it comes off, everything's great, it comes off the title. Do we know as a council that it's come off the title, or is that just something that happens further down the road? Because I imagine until all the deficiencies are made and project is actually completed, that notice is going to stay on title.
This is more the building inspector's wheelhouse,
yeah.
but it's my understanding, I thought that they completed the deficiencies, the building inspector closed those building permits, and then they applied again to council to have the notice on title removed. That was my understanding.
Okay, so they'll come back to apply to have it removed at some later date.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
Sarah's giving me a nod there, so I understand it correctly. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor? Okay. Approved. Carried. Thank you. I should be saying carried. I just look at Sarah. So my iPad is not charging. Okay, another development variance permit for 1021 Ward Street. Development Services has received a development variance permit application for 1021 Ward Street to reduce the minimum front lot line required by the zoning bylaw from 4.5 meters to 1.5 meters for the purpose of constructing a single-family home with a suite. Council is being requested to approve the variance. Do we have any, there's a recommendation from staff. Councillor Page moving the recommendation. Any seconds? Councillor Renwick seconding. Councillor Page, Councillor Renwick, anyone else like to say anything? Oh.
Yeah.
Councillor Page?
Yep.
And then Councillor Morrison.
So I just have a bit of a curiosity. I had some other concerns, but Councillor Renwick set me right, and I'd read the lot a little wrong. But where do we get into the minimal lot sizes? Like, you look at these two longer, more traditional lots, they're kind of cut off at the back. You get this chunky lot facing out onto Ward. Where do we start considering the minimal size of these lots and what's going on there? Like, because this starts getting quite dense in that area. Not that this is the question before us, but that's the curiosity I have.
Yeah, through the chair. It's all of those lots on that whole block, they were all 25-foot lots. They were existing. And so if it's an existing minimum lot size, they're permitted to build on it. So those three little lots, they got reconfigured. So one faces Ward Street and the other two face Hoover Street, but the lot size did not change, and that's allowed in our subdivision bylaw. But if you wanted to, if you had a larger piece and you wanted to subdivide it into smaller pieces, these three lots would not meet our minimum size requirements now. So it's kind of grandfathered. If that makes sense.
So just if I get this right, if I may. So it's really like the area hasn't changed in any of the lots. They've just been reorganized and it managed to keep the same area. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I think you've answered my question again. I'm thinking this is Grizel's nursery, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. And so when I look at these numbers on the diagram that you've labeled as address 501 and 503 Hoover Street, are those now then like 25, 30 foot wide lots facing that? Because like when I look at the overlay drawing on here, they're now bigger than a 25 foot lot. So they chopped off the back, made one lot, but the frontages for 501 and 503 are now 33 feet or something.
Yeah.
So it looks like they must have taken out a lot line, and they took 3 lots and they made it into 2 lots facing Hoover.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, you have the math right. And I think the reason that they do that is because it's easier to build a wider house than it is to build a long skinny house. I'm just guessing. I wasn't here for the subdivision, but that's kind of, I think, the principle that some people explain, because you can't have any windows or any doors if you're really close to the property line, so they reorient them so you can have more windows and stuff.
And then,
so a wider house.
just out of curiosity's sake, because I understand that these overlays are put on there, so those of us who can't figure out what we're talking about sometimes, but has 509 actually, the house at 509, has it actually dissolved the 25 foot lot lines? Are they still there in theory?
Which one is?
Because I'm looking at, so 509 is a house on Hoover Street,
Okay.
and it looks like it extends into the 25 foot lot on either side of it. And I'm just wondering if those lot lines actually still exist, or if they were ever taken out, and then do we not ask for those lot lines to ever come out?
If the lot lines are on that map that you're seeing, they really do exist. Sometimes our aerial image might not line up totally correctly, so it's a guess, but it can be off by a couple meters, so it depends. And the only time they have to come in for a lot consolidation is if they apply for a new addition. So if you're existing, you can leave those lots, but if you want to add on and then you cross a property line, then you have to do a lot consolidation at that point.
Okay.
Or if you're already across the property line, you have to, if you're gonna do an addition, we do that consolidation at that time.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, now you've answered all my planning and development questions for the evening.
I have one more for you. So going back to the property in question, they have 3 parking spots, but the bylaws to have 2 for a single with a suite. Is there one for the suite or no?
It's 2 parking stalls for a single family house and 1 parking stall for the
For the
suite.
suite, okay.
So in total.
So they are required to have those 3 as well?
They are, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I read that in the complaint letter as it's for the extra parking spot that and as a precedent for the city, if we're looking to not increase our vehicular traffic, and they're pretty close to downtown, that's a bit problematic, but it's what's required at this point, so thank you.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, any other questions? Okay, all in favor? Carried. Okay. Next, we're dealing with the Welcome to Nelson sign design competition. So through the province of British Columbia's Tourism Dependent Communities Fund, the city has received funding to update the 3 Welcome to Nelson signs. Because the Welcome to Nelson signs are the first impression of the city for both residents and visitors, it is important that they reflect our community. The purpose of this report is to present the results from the preliminary consultation and seek direction from council on the next steps. Do we need to hear something from Sebastian, or do we want to move how we move the recommendation, or
Move it.
what have you?
I'll
Okay,
second.
Councillor Woodward, Councillor Morrison, and then how about Councillor Woodward, if you have questions for Sebastian?
No, only I just think this is a great idea to go out to the public to get input. Early on
I think so. So we did receive some funding from the Tourism Dependent Community Fund. So this is 100% covered by the province, so it is a good time to tackle it. So yeah, hopefully with the help of the community and we get some good designs submitted and hopefully everyone's on board and we can pick a winner, and then eventually that gets presented to council, and ultimately the final decision will rest with you. But I think it's probably the right time to have that conversation and then come up with the decisions. The existing signs are in, a lot of people love them, but they are in rough shape. Some of the wood is just rotten, have holes in it, so it'd be hard to just patch it up and make it look good. So I think I'm confident that we'll get to the end of it.
This could be the moment.
Could be the moment.
Councilor Page.
Actually, Sebastian, just for our benefit and the benefit of the public, can you give us a rundown of what the themes emerged? This is a hot topic out in the community, and also how this design competition is going to work.
Yeah, so essentially, I guess we first introduced that idea on our social media that we received the fund to look at this, and that we would start by engaging with the community to kind of just from the get-go hear their thoughts on it, what they like, what they don't like, and what's important to them, and how do we integrate that into potentially new signs. So we used our thought exchange, and we did get quite a bit of participation. Definitely the most popular exchange that we've had so far. So over 1,100 participants shared over 1,200 thoughts, and then they all got rated. And then the software allows us to theme them. So essentially, there's two ways of theming, and then kind of illustrating that. So one way is to look at the total number of thoughts, and that was attached to your report. And almost out of the 800 that were themed, almost 500 were in that theme that we called maintain similar design, with that word iconic appearing. And so that was that was one thought that came up often. But what's interesting as well is you can also take that and look at, okay, with all those thoughts that were mentioned in these different categories, how were they rated? And essentially, again, maintaining similar design, using natural materials, local, unique, quirky, and creative. They were all well rated, the top rated ones. So then that kind of informs what we're going to evaluate in the design competition. So the design competition, what we'd like to do is open it as soon as possible. So we've attached that call for submissions, and we essentially would open it up with some of those criteria that I've just talked about. So the first round would be open to almost anyone, and then we would have a design review panel that would be represented by different people from the community with different lenses, and they would evaluate the designs we've received, and up to 10 designs would be shortlisted and would go on to phase 2. So in phase 2, we would give the ones that have been shortlisted $1,000 to use that to really bring their design to the next level. So really kind of think about how will you go from that initial conceptual to really like creating something that's buildable. And so then from that, the design review panel would shortlist it down to 5, and then those would be the top 5s that we would bring out to the community for a vote. And essentially, because people will put a lot of work into these, so we want to give them, there's a prize at the end for the top 3 designs. So just to really kind of encourage people to participate. So then the top 3 designs would be presented to council, and then council could make a decision if they like them, which one they want to go with. And then the next step will be for the city to go out with a RFP process to see who's interested in actually building signs. So it doesn't mean that whoever's designed it will build it. They can definitely partner with a company, but we just want to make sure that if you're an artist in town and you come out, you've got a really good design, but you don't have the means to fabricate the sign, that you're still able to contribute to the design. And then sign fabricators can really go in and eventually build the sign. So in a nutshell, that's the idea.
All right.
I'll move the, if we move the recommendation?
Yeah.
Was moved and seconded.
Actually,
Call the question. All in
hold on,
favor?
actually,
Oh,
one more question.
questions?
Oh, sorry, Councillor Charlie.
Just further to Councillor Page's question, at what point in the process would the assessment of the clear zone? I just happened to pull up the highways, and I'm thinking an artist wanting to design something. Will they not meet a criteria because, like, would that be round 2 when they get a professional
Yeah.
involved? They could get some support in
Yeah,
that piece?
exactly. And we've talked to MOTI, and MOTI doesn't want to be on the review panel for different reasons. But they just, they want to be consulted, so we'll make sure to consult them. I think they were saying there's in theory, where some of the signs are today, it could pose certain challenges, but they're willing to work with us to, they know the importance of having these signs at those locations. So, so they've indicated that they want to help us, and they're willing to collaborate. So we'll make sure that we consult with them as we kind of advance with those, more detailed plans.
Thanks.
Sebastian, we're moving the Samo sign.
Yeah, that's
Which one? Sorry.
The one that's
Samo.
where Samo, we're moving that one
Yeah.
closer to the center.
Yeah. So the locations are really, I don't want to get in that debate with the community, but I think the city and MOTI will work together to find the appropriate location. So I know that one's been talked about quite a bit in terms of bringing it closer to the city limits. So
That's the hotel one.
Okay, seeing no further questions, all in favor? Okay, carried.
thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Have a good night.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
All right, we are moving to the COVID Recovery Grant Program. So per council direction, staff have been working to administer the 2021 COVID Recovery Grant Program. An application intake was held in June 2021, and staff are now presenting a recommendation to council with regards to awards under the grant program. We have a recommendation from staff, but you're free to move anything you want.
I'll move the current recommendation as it reads.
Okay, and second by Councillor Renwick. Where's the Councillor Renwick? Questions from the mover, seconder? Nope. Councillor Page.
So I'm glad that, this project, I think, has been really well put together. We've got a lot of great applications. I see a lot of the names we've heard from and some new names, maybe some of us on council weren't hearing the buzzes of. We had put a budget on this of $300K, and we came in under that, and obviously some ineligibility because people were in surplus situations. But some of these top recommendations are in worse condition than the top recommendation, and we're well under budget. So my question here is, do we, or can we, should we consider topping some of these organizations up?
So, Councillor Page, if you're speaking to the group that we've sort of recommended
yeah.
that you're thinking that you could provide some additional funding to it.
Yeah.
I guess the couple risks there, in that we kind of had the program, and to kind of stick with the program, we did discuss, we certainly saw a pattern, and again, it wasn't for, in some cases, people having lost revenue, but in certain sectors, there certainly seemed to be a lot of grants that were available for some groups and not for others, and that's why you're really kind of seeing the effect. We did discuss, currently, we feel pretty comfortable with what we presented here. Doesn't mean that, that's up to council's prerogative. There was a question as to whether or not, since we do have a surplus, do we look at a different sort of model? Because some of the other people have requests that I think could be beneficial to the community overall, but based on the criteria that we sort of have presented it here, they either got a benefit for, however that reason happened this year, maybe it's successful in grant writing. But what does, is there another, now we have this funds, is there another way that you want to look at a second round almost sort of thing?
Okay,
So
yeah.
that was one thought that we had. Now, again, the idea at this point was not to allow those that were successful this time to kind of be able to come again. And one of the challenges we faced was if you start giving out additional, is there people that didn't apply, or that was some of the other concerns that we had. So we got a few options here, and it's a good notice that we did set some money aside and we didn't reach that. Again, we've talked about whether or not we carry forward, because the funds don't just sort of disappear, we don't have to pay them back. But could it be something that maybe it's a future, like, as people get into the fall, or is it in 2022 that we run something again where maybe some of these other groups, maybe they've used up their grant money and to survive, and then as they look at further, into 2022, that they need help then. So those are just some of those things that council should think about.
Okay, a second round I'd be comfortable with that.
Councillor Woodward.
I just want to say that I think that's an excellent idea to do kind of like a second intake. Because, you look at these organizations that didn't make the criteria, and, they're all very beneficial NGOs for our town. So I just would really like to support that. And if the funds aren't, if there isn't a time limit on the funds, maybe there's like a fall, because maybe these organizations will have a better idea of where they're going or what they really need.
And I think that that's part of it, Councillor Woodward, is do we change the criteria a bit to maybe not so much, maybe there's a focus on what they want to do with the funding. Again, that could help out our community. It may not be, hey, did you have a loss, or did you have that sort of a criteria?
Yeah.
And it would give others maybe an opportunity. Maybe it's how do I rebuild back better? It may have been successful for a couple of different reasons, but hey, I still need to get some tech update or that sort of thing.
Yeah.
That's excellent. Thank you.
Councillor Charwood and then Morrison.
There could be, my question is partly about language and partly about how the numbers were determined.
Yes.
So we've got a column here for operating loss. Is that a requirement? Is that revenue loss used interchangeably with operating loss? Because to me, that's not the same thing.
Yeah, no, it's a fair question. But what we did generate from that was, because you can see places where, definitely most of them got hit by whether it's a registration or ticket sales sort of component. So you can see that, but then it's sort of like,
Are you in trouble?
well, exactly,
Yeah.
and or almost also, you may have lost that, but you were able to gain even more or similar with other grants and that sort of thing. And so that's sort of where we felt that, yes, or cut expenses. That's where we felt that we kind of landed, and that's where, after we've gone through the process, I think that there's a sense too that from staff that we felt that we tried to toe what we had put in the app, where we've got this group comes based on what we had sort of said in the criteria, and also recognizing that maybe because we sort of did this, you create it, but then afterwards you're like, well, hey, maybe should we have looked at something else? And maybe that's why it's good to hear council kind of saying, maybe there is a different methodology criteria that we should look at for another intake, because we had allocated funds and we haven't used it all.
Follow-up, Chair? Thanks, Colin. So that operating loss piece was added information, not part of the original description to those looking for support. But it looks like it's a deciding factor of who made it in and who didn't.
There is that, yes, we did. I would agree with you there. Yeah.
And it also then explains why, so I'm looking at, just for example, Selkirk Concert Society, the amount requested was $5,400. They're only at a loss of 63, but it's because of their lost revenues that number is from, and we don't see those numbers. So it's just a weird
correct.
way for us to look at the numbers and go,
It is, and again, to be clear on this, we have some groups that are very savvy, have audited financial statements that make it much more easier for me, or and the group that scored this to say, yes, okay, I see that makes sense. Others we really tried to pull information from. Some had really struggled to even, we had a number of different questions. Say, can you get me this? And I need this time, and like what we thought was some pretty basic kind of questions. Even on some of them, I'm like, hey, wait a second. I see that you've got the cashed in GIC, but you've got it in as a revenue, right? So there, again, different levels of what information that we're providing. So I think when we do this again and depending on the criteria, I think we need to be a little bit more specific, maybe a bit more of a timeline, maybe more. Do you have something that has a purpose that we agree with versus did you lose money, and how exactly that kind of all works out in the accounting kind of side of it?
Fair
That
enough.
makes any sense?
Yep.
It was not an easy, some were easy, some were not easy.
But at the end of the day, the amount requested came from a revenue number that we're not seeing here.
That is true, yes. I know, or yes, to cover expenses.
Criteria was lost revenue was, are you net? Do you end up with a net loss? You lost revenue, I was able to cut expenses, or I was able to get a grant. I think when we talked about this was trying to, if you truly, you didn't get anything, you couldn't avoid paying your insurance, your rent, your whatever, because those were fixed costs, your landlord didn't give you a break or whatever, and you had no revenue. That was what we were trying to kind of bridge that gap for those folks. I think the expectation was that, organizations went out and got grants they could from senior levels of government, which, government wasn't, we weren't intending to fund what senior levels of government were funding. And you cut your expenses where you were, just as we did as an organization. We didn't have any increase in taxes or fees or anything, but we cut our expenses to be able to manage that, right? So that was the same expectation with these groups. If you want to, as Colin said, another round, that it is truly, is there startup funding that you want, then you could design something like that. But I don't think everybody that would have applied for, if there was actually true startup money, was in this intake, right? Because we didn't really advertise it that way.
That's right.
And I think there's, some other things that you might want to think about is, like the signage, for example. We have a certain amount of money to, do those welcome to Nelson sign. Our signage around the city is like terrible. Do we want to enhance that and get our signage done across the city, which benefits nonprofits, in the hospitality sector, et cetera, right? So, I think given some thought of how do we, kind of complete some things so that, like in our downtown, we're going to, have new signage, and some of our, infrastructure, our benches, our garbage cans, all those things look pretty tired out there, and you kind of have the shiny new thing, and then you kind of walk around the corner and doesn't look so good. So I think there's some ideas that we can come back, and one of them might be, do we want to create a true startup fund for, people that, some of the proposals in here, I think with a new ticketing system or a new this, and maybe there's some partnerships like we've talked about in the Cultural Development Committee for a while is, could you create that common ticketing, or that common hub that you walk into the city, go to one place and you can get ticket to the Civic and the Capitol and the Touchstones and the whatever at one place, as opposed to trying to figure out what's going on everywhere. So I think there's some opportunity that way as well. If you kind of get those groups together and say, how could we kind of, create that legacy sort of thing.
Councillor Morrison.
Well, I don't know. I get on the speakers list and all my ideas are stolen. It's just the way of my life. So the CAO has now stolen my ideas. Just in terms of the fact that I don't have a problem with going maybe through a second iteration of taking a look at the COVID recovery grant. But at the same time, is there something that the city itself could be doing with this money that we now, like, we've done this, and this is what we got. Like, are we doing this again because we didn't spend all the money? Like, I sort of think like people need to show up when the offer is made, but I'm not against what you've suggested, Councillor Page, that we go a second round, but maybe there's something that we do have on the books, the city, that we could be doing that is a benefit then to everybody with this money as we recover. I don't see in here start, I see recover in what we were setting aside these funds for. So it's just something else to contemplate going forward.
I have two questions or comments. Number one, I mentioned to the CAO before the meeting about rather than using the Path to 2040 sustainability plan as a decision matrix or review matrix, it'd be great to pivot to Nelson Next. We might reveal a few other criteria in evaluating some of these. One of them is the Nelson Curling Club and their use and potential as a cooling center given, ongoing heat waves, and maybe some funding could be directed to support them in enhancing the curling club as a cooling center. So those kinds of things. And the other question or comment I would have is if we did do another round, I do like the idea of maybe redirecting it or pausing before we do another round so that we kind of put this new framework maybe potentially in place. But the other thing I would like to see potentially is one of the criteria in here was about building resilience within the organizations for future pandemics or that kind of thing. That could include how do you run your operations differently. So, Glacier Gymnastics, for example, could they run more distributed programming so they don't, if there is another pandemic or the pandemic continues, you don't have to have all of those kids in one place. They could extend the hours, get more flexible with their staff. I don't know, build systems so that you can continue to run the program without having the same challenges. So it'd be a shame if we supported them and they just came back to the same place. So just some thoughts.
Really?
Wait,
Just like,
better?
oh, sorry, were we looking like we were sleeping?
Okay, Councillor Woodward.
I just wanted to add to that. I think that strengthening. This pandemic it's on the wane here, but that there's no guarantee that it will come back or that there'll be a different strain. So I just really want to second that and say that, strengthening our community to handle these rough waters can only benefit us as an entire town. So I think that's interesting, idea of funding, I guess, resilience, essentially. How does an organization become more resilient and flexible in this, when a crisis happens? Or getting crisis ready, I guess, is the other term.
Which is some of that we were doing through the Economic Development Partnership.
Yeah.
I know I participated in the
Business
survey
continuity.
and I moved that forward. Maybe that's where it goes because it's what works for gymnastics probably works for swimming or other organizations. So taking a broader approach as opposed to a single individual. And I know we've had a lot of challenge with the uptake of businesses or other organizations actually doing that work. So maybe this is some funding that makes allow some of those things to happen. Because it's not just a pandemic. It's what might be facing. It's getting a little smokier already. So
Totally.
what do we do in those circumstances? Because they're not just cooling centers. They're,
Right.
Getting away from the smoke centers.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so hearing no more. Oh, Councillor Page.
I'm just going to leave it on a comment. I think we've got our values aligned properly if we're thinking about supporting the resilience that the council members have spoken to around the table and the different kind of risk factors that might be approaching our city and where we use to focus. I just want to make sure that when we go to a hybrid second round of some sort, we're keeping in mind now that the pandemic is kind of coming to a natural kind of safe space in conclusion, there's still, some of these organizations are going to throw, and some of them that aren't on the list are going to go through, you know, different kinds of manifestations of the problems that they've been holding on to for so long. So just because we've gotten to the shore, it doesn't mean, you know, 6 months from now an organization isn't going to start to really manifest a problem because of how long, you know, a key executive director has been holding the line for the last 18 months that needs to move on, or some shuffling of staff, or a protracted period where they can't, you know, fill a gap or get a contract in place. So we still, I think, will have to have a piece of this pie that is still positioned to support and recovery of those organizations, and not simply facing towards the future, because I think we are going to see at least a few more problems crop up within our community because of the stress.
Okay, well said. So the staff recommendation is that council passes the following resolution: that council award COVID recovery grants to local nonprofit organizations as follows. And I won't read it because it's fairly long. Should I read it? Well, okay. Glacier Gymnastics, 15,000. Nelson Civic Theater Society, 15,000. Nelson Baseball, 6,800. Nelson Curling Club, 15,000. Nelson Road Kings, $3,953. Nelson Soccer Association, 15,000. Nelson Streetcar, 15,000. Silica Concert Society, 5,400. And the SPCA, $4,514. All in favor? Okay. That's carried.
Maybe just to clarify, because somebody out there in TV land might be wondering why somebody got 15,000, somebody got 6,800, it's because they got what they asked for.
That's right.
Yeah.
They got what they asked for, yeah. Okay.
15,000 was the max.
And 15,000
Yes.
is the max, yeah. I think that's it.
That was really well done.
Given what you have
Reports.
Right, and I just get a bit nervous about tomorrow.
for the ones who didn't.
Okay, we have minutes. We do have some minutes. The council received the committee and commission meetings for information. Councilor Woodward, Councilor Charwood, seconds. All in favor? Carried. And then reports. I'm assuming everyone's seen the reports in their agenda packages. Do we have a mover? Receipt?
I'll move.
Councilor Morrison, Councilor Renwick, second. All in favor?
Just,
The rest of
but one thing I just didn't know if council did see, I did talk with Development Services, and we all know that Alex 2 moved on, and then we had his replacement, and then she apparently, received other work, and so that's a small department, but they had the busiest permit June ever, and so if you look at the numbers for June and what's going on in our community, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to see all that's going on around here, but wow, what a busy department, and a lot of pressure, a lot of stress, and I just, for me, I want to always kind of shout out to them because of all the tough work that they do, but it's great for our community as well that we're really seeing a boom here, but it does have its own drawbacks as well. So, but I just thought the numbers were quite staggering when I just saw even what June looked like, because I think even last year we knew that it had a real dip because of COVID, but then we started to come out the other side a bit. So,
So
that's all.
big shout out to Development Services, and a big shout out to Public Works actually for working in the heat. Yeah, man, I saw a couple guys out there just slaving away hard in 40-degree heat. It was amazing.
Had a
Okay.
I just want to say, one of the things I've noticed with all these building permits is that, we are getting a lot more, a lot of our housing stock is being upgraded. And I think I remember 80% of Nelson's housing stock is older than 50 years. I don't know if that's exactly right, but we have a very old housing stock. And, for a long time it was a challenge to keep these houses, functional. And I know there's part of what's happening is gentrification, people are coming with money, but at the same time there is a revitalization of some beautiful heritage buildings. New houses are being built where there were once not very great houses run down. So in this boom, I think there is that recognition that Nelson is getting a revamp on our housing stock, which is positive for the future.
And it should protect that housing stock from being torn down.
Right.
it's a very,
investment into it.
Yeah.
And I know Carmen also said, with the new retrofit federal program that their phones are running off the hook too, so hopefully
Right.
people are making those energy upgrades this month.
Right, and with the repair of housing stock, they're actually becoming more efficient houses, which is kind of within our goal of trying to reduce GHG production, so. Silver linings in all this.
Yeah. Councillor Charwin?
Related comment, question perhaps to staff around, it's impressive, the value is much significant. I wouldn't say the numbers year to date are similar, but do we track sort of our increase? I don't see a decline in our housing stock. I do see sort of a regular increase. Are we tracking numbers around?
They do show, when we lose housing, they will.
Right, I just mean in terms of a percentage increase, right? We're always talking about how low our vacancy is, but if we're adding to our stock, shouldn't we see a
I think we're getting more people into our communities.
Yeah.
So the gap is still, I get that,
Yeah,
but
that value is.
but it's a good news story.
It's
We are
definitely-
increasing our
Way
stock,
behind
so
us.
it's not just these developments that we're doing, but actually we have an increasing stock
Yeah, if you
going
look
on.
at the number of single-family dwellings that have been built this year, that's.
Significant for a small town, is it not? Yeah.
but that is the story you kind of see in the number, if I'm reading this correctly, is on this report, for instance, we have less renovations on single-family homes, but the value of them is 3 times the amount for that less. And the numbers are, the value going into each individual activity is quite a lot higher than it was previously. So I like this idea, though, of kind of tracking the overall increase on units and being able to have a sense of what that is, as opposed to these numbers that we get on a monthly basis, which are good, but there is a story here of more money being put into a slightly less development. But some bigger developments, much bigger developments.
And just behind us, as I can see, the third one going up as I look out the window here, 3 on one lot behind my house.
Yep.
3 new houses, single-family homes, not rentals, not families built a enclave for themselves. 3 homes in the last, how long? Year and a half. They just build one, they build the next one, and now the second one is just, the third one is just getting its 3rd floor put on.
I'm going to call the question on receipt of reports. All in favor? Carried. And a resolution to adjourn.
Chair, I have a couple of late items. Just sort of, sorry, my apologies. Just things that kind of have been bothering me, but I think that we need to keep in mind, and not everybody is on social media, not everybody has access to all of the web pages and stuff, and so a few things considering the fire risk currently. We talked about fire several times tonight already. Just a reminder that currently in the Southeast Fire Center, which is our fire district here, there are 69 current active fires, so a reminder that everybody should have a grab-and-go bag. You can find this information on the government website. And again, if you don't know how to get on there, I'm sure if you were to even phone, the firehouse is going to love me for this. I'll be getting a letter from the chief. But in terms of getting that, asking somebody to print that out for you so that you have that ready to go. I got a notification this morning through my RD link that some fire equipment was stolen from the Mary Creek fire site. This is just not a cool thing to be doing. So so Mary Creek was the fire that was in Castlegar that required the evacuation of 2 of the long-term care facilities there and 30 houses that were on evacuation order. So fire suppression equipment, fire hoses and sprinklers were stolen. So I guess somebody, when their house looks like it's going to burn down, will have a nice fire hose and sprinkler system. But right now, the fire department is missing that equipment. So if you see it lying on the side of the road, or suddenly your neighbor has really nice fancy skookum stuff to put out a fire in their yard, you might want to bring that up. The other thing is really big issue, because drones are such a happening birthday, Christmas, whatever present for young people and old people alike, because this is pretty techie stuff, is that drones are not to be flown. Do not fly your drone to go and look at a fire. That grinds fire service down to a minimum. Helicopters and planes have to land. They cannot have them in the air while there's drones in the area. So, like, asking people, please, please, please do not use those pieces of equipment. As much as it would be exciting to fly over a fire with your drone, it is illegal. I mean, it's not just like be nice. It is an illegal act that can levels quite a good size fine, actually, if they are able to catch you. Going on with fires, just reminded everybody that we are at level 2 watering restrictions here in the city of Nelson, which means that you can only water your lawn 1 day a week. So if you're an odd, you can water on Thursdays, and if you're an even, you can water on Wednesdays. Otherwise, you can still water your gardens with a handheld device. And last but not least, please try to remember the speed limit in the city of Nelson is 40 kilometers an hour. I know it's hot out, and maybe some older cars don't have air conditioning, and in the old day that's what we used to do, roll down the windows, drive as fast as you could possibly drive in the heat to cool off. But I think most of us have AC, so maybe we could knock it down a few kilometers an hour when we're driving our cars around town, being aware that school is out. There's a lot more children, there's more e-bikes, there's more bicycles, there's more everything out there. So slow down and enjoy your drive. So that's it for me. Thank you, Chair.
And just on that watering, we were using 5 times as much water as we would use without watering your outdoor watering. Right, that hot. 5 times as much.
Okay.
And we do need that for fire suppression if
Yep.
if it comes to that, and that's also you're watering with potable, drinkable water. So we don't want to have a whole bunch of plastic water bottles going to the landfill if we can help it.
No. Thank you, Councillor Morrison, for that. Okay, a resolution to adjourn. Councillor Renwick, Councillor Morrison, all in favor? Carried.
1 hour, I told you.
Hit that gavel.